Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sorin Space. Today, I want to talk about a mechanism so fundamental that it quietly shapes how we think, judge, decide, and ultimately how we harm one another. This is not a psychological talk. It is not a moral lecture. And it is not about good intentions or bad intentions. It is about semantic compression. The core conclusion. Let me state the conclusion clearly. Human judgment is not built on reality itself, but on reality after it has been repeatedly compressed by language. And this compression does not stop at expression. It continues through categorization and labeling, and finally becomes the foundation of our decisions. What makes this process especially dangerous is that human beings tend to trust what is efficient. We mistake usability for accuracy and convenience for truth. Part 1. What is semantic compression 2? Language is the first compression. The world is continuous. It is complex, dynamic, multi-layered, and precise. Language is not. Language is discrete, linear, symbol-based. In order to communicate, language must cut the continuous world into pieces and assign symbols to them. This is the first compression. Before anything is judged or decided, a large amount of information is already lost. Third, categorization creates compression within language. But language does not stop there. Even after reality has been converted into language, language itself performs another operation. It categorizes. It labels. It sorts descriptions into types. A person does something specific, under specific conditions, for specific reasons. Language describes it. But then language compresses itself again. It assigns a label. Lazy, unreliable, difficult. This is no longer description. This is classification. The second compression happens within language logic itself. What was once a statement becomes a category. What was once a description becomes a judgment container. I-Fee, from compressed meaning to judgment foundation. Human understanding is then built on this foundation. Not on reality, but on meaning after multiple rounds of reduction. This is where distortion begins. Nuance disappears. Context fades. Conditions are ignored. Complex processes are frozen into static categories. Labels do not only simplify meaning, they remove time, turning temporary behavior into permanent identity. Judgment becomes binary. Decisions become rigid. Conclusions become one-cut solutions. Part 2. What does semantic compression cause? Vi. At the individual level, bias and arrogance. At the individual level, this process manifests as arrogance, prejudice, and discrimination, not because people are inherently cruel, but because they mistake compressed meaning for complete understanding. Here's how it happens. Someone observes a behavior, language describes it, then the brain assigns a label. The label replaces the observation. The label is stored, and the next time the label is retrieved, not the reality. This is how bias forms, not through hatred, but through compression efficiency. Labels replace observation. Categories replace individuals. 6. At the organizational level, policy and structural harm. At the organizational level, semantic compression becomes far more dangerous. Labels turn into rules. Categories turn into policies. What was once a rough linguistic shortcut becomes a rigid system. This is where one-size-fits-all decisions emerge. Most harm does not begin with hatred. It begins with decisions made on compressed representations of reality. When policies are built on simplified categories and applied to complex human lives, damage is no longer accidental. It is structural. Part 3. What should we do? 7th. Awareness is not a solution, but it is the starting point. Semantic compression cannot be eliminated. Language will always simplify. Categories will always exist. Labels will always be used. But awareness of this mechanism changes something fundamental. It stops us from treating compressed meaning as complete truth. It makes us question the label before we apply the policy. It reminds us that every judgment, every decision, every rule we create is built on a reduced version of reality. Not to stop using language, not to stop making decisions, but to refuse the illusion that what we have compressed is all there is. Thank you.